Good Shabbos, everybody.
Shabbat Shalom.
We begin our service in Mishkan Tefillah, our blue prayer book, or Sidur, on page 128, with Hinei Ma Tov, how wonderful it is to be together. Hinei Ma Tov, umanayim shebetachim gam yachad. 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 How good it is, how sweet it is to be together on this day. How good it is, how sweet it is to be together on this day. Hinei Ma Tov, umanayim shebetachim gam yachad. Hinei Ma Tov, umanayim shebetachim gam yachad. Shalom aleichem, salam aleikum. Shalom aleichem, salam aleikum. Shalom aleichem, salam aleikum. Shalom aleichem, salam aleikum. How good it is, how sweet it is to be together on this day. How good it is, how sweet it is to be together on this day. Hinei Ma Tov, umanayim shebetachim gam yachad. Hinei Ma Tov, umanayim shebetachim gam yachad.
We turn to page 124, 124, and please join me at the top. We enter the sanctuary to welcome Shabbat. Within these walls, we sit surrounded by numberless generations. Our ancestors built the synagogue as a visible sign of God's presence in their midst. Throughout our long history and our endless wanderings, it has endured. A beacon of truth, love, justice for all humanity. Its presence guided our ancestors in life of righteousness, holding up to them a vision of their truest selves. Now we, in our turn, come into this sanctuary to affirm the sacredness of our lives. May we enter this place in peace. May holiness wrap around us as we cross its threshold. Weariness, doubt, the flaws within our human hearts, the harshness of the weak, let these drop away at the door. In the brightness of Shabbat, let peace settle upon us as we lift our hearts in prayers. And it's our great honor to welcome the Sokol family to the Bima as they light our Shabbat candles. Turn to page 120. Come on, Bobby Sokol.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher kidshanu b'mitzvotav v'tzivanu lehatlik ner Shel Shabbat.
We turn to page 123, and for those who are able, we rise together for our Kiddush.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, borei peri hagafen. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, asher kidshanu b'mitzvotav v'ratzavanu, v'shabbat kodsho be'ahava uvratzon chin hilanu. Vicharon lema'aseh v'reishit, ki hu yom techila lemikra'e kodesh, zecher letziyat Mitzrayim, ki vanu v'harta v'tanu ki darshta mikol hamim. V'shabbat kodsheha be'ahava uvratzon chin hatanu. Baruch atah Adonai mekadesh hashabbat. Amen.
Take a sip. Actually, you're not driving. Was it real? That's good. That's good. I was just kidding. Take a seat. Tomorrow. You got to earn it. We turn to page 130 in our prayer book. Excuse me, 127 at the top, and please join me, 127. There are days when we seek things for ourselves and measure failure, but what we do not gain. On Shabbat, we seek not to acquire, but to share. There are days when we exploit nature as if it were a horn of plenty that can never be exhausted. On Shabbat, we stand and wonder before the mystery of creation. There are days when we act that we care nothing for the rights of others. On Shabbat, we remember that justice is our duty and a better world our goal. So we embrace Shabbat, day of rest, day of wonder, day of peace. We continue on page 130 with Psalm 95.
אשר בידו מחקרי ארץ ותועפות הרים לו, אשר לא היה והוא עשהו, ביבשת ידיו יצרו, כי הוא אלוהינו ואנחנו אמר איתו
Welcome the Shabbat on page 138 with Lecha Dodi.
Lecha Dodi likrat kala b'nei Shabbat nekabela. Lecha Dodi likrat kala b'nei Shabbat nekabela. Shamor v'zachor b'diborecha tishmianu el hamiyuchad אחד אדוני אחד ושמו אחד לשם ולתפארת ולתהילה לך אדונתי לקראת כלה בני שבת נקבלה לך אדונתי לקראת כלה בני שבת נקבלה לקראת שבת לכו ונלכה כי היא מקור הברכה מראש מקדם נסוכה סוף מעשה במח השבת תחילה לך אדונתי לקראת כלה בני שבת נקבלה לך אדונתי לקראת כלה בני שבת נקבלה התעוררי התעוררי כי באורך קומי אורי 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 שיר דברי כבוד אדוני עלייך נגלה לך אדונתי לקראת כלה בני שבת נקבלה לך אדונתי לקראת כלה בני שבת נקבלה.
For those who are able, we rise together to greet Shabbat HaMalkah.
בואי ושלום עטרת בעלה גם בשמחה ובצהלה תוך אמוני עם סגולה בואי חלה לך אדונתי לקראת כלה בני שבת נקבלה לך אדונתי לקראת כלה בני שבת נקבלה.
Bottom of page 145, 145. Teach me, O God, a blessing, a prayer, on the mystery of a withered leaf, unripened fruit so fair, and the freedom to see, to sense, to breathe, to know, to hope, to despair. Teach my lips a blessing, a hymn of praise, as each morning and night you renew your days, lest my day be today as the one before, lest routine set my ways. We continue with our Chetzi Kaddish right there, 144.
יתגדל ויתקדש שמרפא בעלמא דברה חירותי וימליך מלכותי בחייכון וביומייכון ובחיי דכל בית ישראל בגלה בגלה ובזמן קריב ואמרו אמן יהי שמי רבא מברך לעלם ולעלמי עלמיה יתברך יתברך וישתבח ויתפאר ויתרומם ויתנשא ויתהדר ויתעלה ויתהלל שמי דקודשה בריחו לעילה מן כל ברכתה ושירתה תושבחתה ונחמתה תמירן בעלמה ואמרו Amen.
We rise together to return to pages 146 and 147.
Am I awake? Am I prepared? Are you listening to my prayer? Can you hear my voice? Can you understand? Am I awake?
please join me at the top of page 147. There is one who sings the song of his own life, finding everything within himself. There is one who leaves the circle of herself and sings the song of her people. There is one whose voice rings with the song of humanity, hoping for the highest perfection. And there is one who rises even higher, uniting with all creatures, with all worlds, filling the universe with song. Nivarech, let us bless.
Baruchu et Adonai HaMevorach. Baruch Adonai HaMevorach le'olam va'ed, le'olam va'ed. Yadadai dai dai, 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 yadadai dai dai.
We turn to page 148, 148.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech ha'olam asher bidvaro ma'ariv aravim b'chochma poteah she'arim uvit vuna meshana itim umahalif et hazmanim umsader et hachochavim b'mishmeretehem barakia kirsona borei yom v'layla gorlel or mipnei choshech v'choshech mipnei or ma'avir yom umevi layla Mavdil ben Yom uvein Laila, Adonai Sevaot Shemo, El Hai v'Kayam Tamid, Imloch Alenu Le'olam Va'ed, Baruch Atah Adonai, Ha-Ma'ariv Aravim.
150.
Ahavat olam Beit Yisrael, Amcha ahavta, Torah u'mitzvot, chukim u'mishpatim, otanu limadeta. Al kein Adonai Eloheinu, b'shofeinu uvkumeinu, nasiach bechukecha, v'nismach b'divrei Toratecha, uv'mitzvotecha, le'olam va'ed, ki heim chayenu, be'orech yameinu, uvahem nehegeh yomam v'layla. Ve'ahavatcha al tasir mimenu le'olamim, Baruch atah Adonai, Ohev amo Yisrael. If you're lost, you feel afraid, and you don't know what to say, then listen, listen to our God. Is there a question on your mind? Is the answer hard to find? Then listen, listen to our God. Listen with all your heart and soul, and with all your might. Write them and learn them and teach them well, every morning and night.
Adonai Elohecha b'chol avavcha v'chol nafshecha v'chol meodecha v'hayu hadvarim ha'elech asher anochi mitzavecha hayom al levavecha v'shinatan levanecha v'dibarta ban b'shiftecha b'veitecha uvlechtecha v'aderech uvshokbecha uvkumecha uvshartam leot al yadecha v'ayul tototfot b'neinecha uktavtam al mezuzot beitecha uvisharecha. And finally, to remember just why all these things matter. They matter because I, Adonai Elohecha, brought you and your children out of Egypt to be God for you. I am your God, and when you do these things, I will be your children's God.
Top of page 157 at the top, we continue, 157. Standing in the parted shores of history, we still believe what we were taught before ever we stood at Sinai's foot, that wherever we go, it is eternally Egypt, that there's a better place, passes through the wilderness. There's no way to get from here to there except by joining hands, marching together, our Song of Redemption, our Michamocha 158.
Kamocha ba'elim Adonai, mi kamocha nedar ba'kodesh, mi kamocha ba'elim Adonai, mi kamocha nedar ba'kodesh. Nora tehilot osei peleh, Nora tehilot Adonai imloch leolam ba'ed Malchutecha ra'u banecha bokei hayam lifnei Moshe u'Miriam Ze'eli anu ve'amru Ze'eli anu ve'amru Adonai imloch leolam ba'ed
Top of page 167. Let there be love and understanding among us. Let peace and friendship be our shelter from life's storms. Adonai, help us to walk with good companions, to live with hope in our hearts and eternity in our thoughts, that we may lie down in peace and rise up, waiting to do your will. Our Hashkivenu 160.
Hashkivenu Adonai Eloheinu l'shalom Mehamiteinu shomreinu lechaim. Spread the shelter of your peace over us. Guide us in wisdom, compassion, and trust. Hashkivenu Adonai Eloheinu l'shalom Ve'hamiteinu shomreinu lechaim. Save us for the sake of your name. shield us from hatred, sorrow, and pain. Hashkiveinu Adonai, Eloheinu l'shalom, ve'hamideinu shomreinu
Top of page 163. We are a people in whom the past endures, in whom the present is inconceivable without moments gone by. The Exodus lasted a moment enduring forever. What happened once upon a time happens all the time. We continue with Vishamru 162.
V'shameru b'nei Yisrael et ha-Shabbat la'asot et ha-Shabbat l'dorotam berit olam beini u'bein b'nei Yisrael oti le'olam le'olam ki she'eshet yamim asa Adonai et hashamayim be'et haaretz u'bayom hashvi'i Shabbat vayinafash.
We rise together for Tefillah 166.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu v'Elohei Avoteinu v'Imotenu, Elohei Avraham, Elohei Yitzchak v'Elohei Yaakov, Elohei Sarah, Elohei Rivka, Elohei Rachel v'Elohei Leah, Ha'el Hagadol Hagibor v'Hanora, El Elyon, Gomel Chasadim Tovim v'Konei Hakol, v'Zocher Chasei Avot v'Imahot, ומביא גאולה לבני בניהם, למען שמו באהבה, מלך עוזר ומושיע ומגן. ברוך אתה אדוני, מגן אברהם בעזרת שרה. אתה גיבור לעולם אדוני, מחיי מתים אתה רב להושיע. מוריד הטל, מכלכל חיים בחסד, מחיי מתים ברחמים רבים, סומך נופלים ורופא חולים, ומתיר אסורים, ומקיים אמונתו לשני עפר, מי כמוך בעל גבורות, ומידו מלך, מלך ממית ומחיה, ומצמיח ישוע, ונאמן אתה להחיות מתים. ברוך אתה אדוני, מחיי המתים. אתה קדוש ושמך קדוש, וקדושים בכל יום יהללוך סלה. ברוך אתה אדוני, האל הקדוש.
You are holy, your name is holy, and those who are holy praise your name every day. Blessed are you, Adonai, the holy God.
Amen.
The top of page 173. May these hours of rest and renewal open our hearts to joy and our minds to truth. May all who struggle find rest on this day. May all who suffer find solace. May all who hurt find healing on this day. May all despair find purpose. May all hunger find fulfillment on this day, and may this day fulfill its promise. We continue with our Ritzeh on the next page.
Adonai Eloheinu be'amcha Yisrael u'tefilatam be'ahava tekabel Ratzon Tamid Avodat Yisrael Yisrael Amecha El Karov Lechol Afenei Elavatecha Bechonenu Shefocheru Chachaleinu Betechesena Eineinu Zion Perachamim Baruch atah Adonai Hamachazir Shechinato
The top of page 179, and please join me. Grant us peace, your most precious gift, O eternal source of peace, and give us the will to proclaim its message to all the peoples of the earth. Bless our country as a safeguard of peace, its advocate among the nations. Make contentment reign within our borders, health and happiness within our homes. Strengthen the bonds of friendship and fellowship among the inhabitants of every land. Plant virtue in every soul. May the love of thy name hallow every home and every heart. Praise you, Eternal One, who blesses our people Israel with peace. 178.
Shalom Rav al Yisrael Amcha Tasim Leolam. Shalom Rav al Yisrael Amcha Tasim Leolam. Ki ata hu melech Adon lechol hashalom. Ki ata hu melech Adon lechol hashalom. Betov beinechem עמך ישראל, בכל עת ובכל שעה בשלומך. ברוך אתה אדוני המברך את עמו ישראל בשלום.
We take a few moments for our silent prayer or reflection.
יהיו רצון אמרי פי, יהיו רצון אמרי פי, והגיון ליבי לפניך, אדוני צורי וגואלי. Oh, may the words of my mouth, the meditation of my heart be acceptable before you, O God, my rock and my redeemer. Ose shalom bimromav, uyase shalom aleinu, me'al kol Yisrael, me'imeru, me'imeru.
We are at that time in our service where we think of those in our community who are in need of healing in body and spirit. On this Shabbat, we especially think of Linda Applebaum, Cindy Silverman Bailey, Sophia Berry, Paul Bebenek, Callie Bonds, Harold Seitling, Deborah Shragwa, Karen Edwards, Ruth Grafman Fromstein, Edward Goldberg, Barbara Goldstone, Elaine Gross, Josie Hatfield, Evelyn Held, Lyons Heyman, Donald and Maida Himmel, Norma Jill Jacobson, Corey Kessler, Laney Klein, Bart Kolber, Jerry Lapidus, Susie Ofson, David Siegel, Liz Slive, Chrissy St. Charles, Brenda Weinstein, Jesse Weisberg, Emily Weidman, and Elisa Rosemore Whitehead. If you are thinking of a loved one, a friend, someone who's in need of healing of body or spirit, and wish to share a name out loud, we invite you to do so as my eyes meet yours. For those names mentioned out loud and for those names that are still in hearts, and as we've been teaching, our Misha Berach, our prayer for healing, is on page 371. I know it's a big jump, but traditionally we do a Misha Berach in our Torah service, middle of page 371, 371.
Misha Avotenu mekor habracha leimotenu. May the source of strength who blessed the ones life's a blessing, and let us say, Amen. Mi sheberach imotenu mekor habracha la'avotenu. Bless those in need of healing with refuah shlema, the renewal of body, the renewal of spirit, and let us say, Amen.
Shalom, everybody.
Shabbat shalom.
It's written actually in a minor tractate in the Talmud that when we get to Elul, rabbis don't have to speak until the high holiday. So good night. I'm just kidding. I went for it. Parshat Re'eh. We are in the fourth book of Devarim, the fourth book in the book of Deuteronomy. Now, the title of the sermon was the final sermon or the final homily. Starting with the first parasha, Devarim, it's a series of sermons or drashot that Moses is giving to the people Israel. Again, it's the final charge that Moses wants to share with the people Israel because he knows that this is going to be the last stage for him. After much despair and trying to reverse his punishment, that's when he kicked the waters of Meribah and gave credit to himself and not to God. His punishment is he's not allowed to enter into Eretz Yisrael. So, in a way, I want us to think that when we're dropping off our kid at college or there's some type of transition, maybe it's our kids getting a driver's license and they're going off on the road for the first time. So, as a parent, this is when we get to stick our finger in their face saying, you better do this or X is going to happen to you. And that is what Moses is trying to convey to the people Israel. It's not surprising that in this second parashah at Hanan, we get the Shema, that the foundational doctrinal belief of the Jewish religion. But the most important thing in these series of homilies when we examine them is Moses is trying to prepare them not only for life without Moses, but how to be successful and thrive in Eretz Yisrael, in the land of Israel. And often in the book of Deuteronomy, Israel is referred to Eretz Yisrael, which is the mystical, the spiritual connection to our indigenous homeland. And in these parshiot of these homilies, we have reminders of these precepts, what to do, and these proscripts as to what not to do. Because for Moses, the heart of Jewish life that Joshua will lead them is what they will do Jewishly and as a society once again in the land of Israel. It's here in these final homilies that we learn that Eretz Yisrael is everything. It's the culmination of the promise that God gave to Abraham earlier ago in the Torah. But here is where we get into that more mystical connection. So we have the teaching to observe the Shalosh Reglaim, the 3 pilgrimage festivals. Here's from Rabbi Hirsch, the great founder of modern Orthodox Judaism, that says, in the book of Deuteronomy, it's devoted to the commandments and teachings that were relevant to the establishment of the new society in the land. 3 festivals, Sukkot especially, are mentioned because of the role in the agricultural society of the year. And the other teaching that is significant, according to Nachmanides, is that it's Jerusalem. It's that during this time of the year we make our pilgrimage to the temple. Again, it's what we will do as Jews, not wandering in the wilderness, not in the diaspora, but once again in Eretz Yisrael. And therefore we learn that so much of our Jewish praxis, so much of our Jewish ritual is focused in a tangible land. Scholarship calls this biblical Zionism, but whatever we call it, it's that Judaism at its best thrives when it returns to the land in which it was created. It's the early origins of Zionism. It's so important even in the Reformed tradition. And this Parshat Re'eh, teaches us that Eretz Yisrael is for Am Yisrael. Yes, later in the book of Joshua, we learn about the allocations and the tribes. But what's so important about the tangibility of the land for today, it speaks nothing about Reform or conservative, Orthodox, modern Orthodox. It's for all the Jewish people. And part of my endeavor regarding Israel advocacy is the true definition of Am Yisrael, one united Birmingham. And I think that begins especially with our love of Israel. But just like Moses needed to remind the Israelites before they entered the land, because he knew they didn't get it. And that was foreshadowing of what it was for the Jewish people today. And after all, this is the essence of the high holidays. And when we look at the high holiday liturgy, we admit that we are stiff-necked and stubborn. Moreover, when we do our Yom Kippur Bidui, the confession, we confess that we too easily forget Zion. It's written in our high holiday prayer book, Mishkan HaNefesh. Moses' final sermon to Israel is something that we need for us today. It's the constant reminder of what is going on in our peoplehood, and I know I've been talking about this often, but as I said a couple weeks ago and in May and June, I am obligated to embody Moshe Rabbeinu, Moses, our teacher, when we need to know what's going on in Israel, because we are all responsible for Israel. For those who have not been following the news, Hezbollah, a terrorist organization in Lebanon, they fired 19 rockets into Israel, this time in the northern border. Hezbollah is in Lebanon. Only 10 Iron Dome rockets intercepted the missiles from Hezbollah. And for those who don't know what's going on in Lebanon, it's utterly the Wild West from a couple hundred years ago. Their economy has totally crashed. The military has given up. They're rationing from gasoline to food. So they're on the verge of a major civil war. On top of that, it's the year anniversary of that awful explosion caused again by Hezbollah. So this is what Israel is facing. But on top of that, a couple days ago, Iran elected their new right-wing president, Ibrahim Raisi, and before he became the elected president of Iran, he was known to sit on a panel that oversaw hundreds of executions of political prisoners. But the most appalling thing about this is that the EU second-in-command, Enrique Mora, was there at the celebration as he was inaugurated. And this is the stuff that we need to be reminded of, because there's going to be a lot more politicking regarding the future of the Iranian deal, and I know so many of my colleagues a couple of years ago spoke out against this, but this is actually the first time that Iran has three major figures that lead the country that are all right-wingers that are trying to eviscerate the state of Israel. And according to sources, they are very close from finally having enriched a nuclear weapon. Again, Moses' reminder to the people Israel is that we have to guard and protect her. Moreover, as I am obligated, our Congresswoman from Michigan, my home state, Rashida Tlaib, continues her Jew hatred. speaking at a convention of socialistic Democrats, she said that the people working behind the curtain, again, the people working behind the curtain are controlling the world. And to whom do you think she's talking about? Yes, the Jews, okay? And once again, there's been nothing from the White House or any form of significant coverage, but here she goes on television saying that Jews are controlling the world. Major Jewish organizations have once again spoke out against her. And what I'm telling you to do for tonight is I'm leaving messages once a week with the Speaker of the House, begging her to remove her from her committee assignments, just like they did to Steve King and Marjorie Taylor Greene, that she has got to be removed because she said another blood libel, and blood libel, again, is the lie that Jews were kidnapping Christian babies and taking their blood for the Passover ritual of matzah. And here's what she said, that I will always tell people cutting people off from water is violence from Gaza to Detroit, and Israel in no capacity is cutting off water to Gaza. They are the ones who give them electricity, and during the war in Gaza in May, Israel kept their electricity on. It was Hamas who was actually trying to shoot those down to blame Israel for it. And finally, the Congresswoman from St. Louis, Cori Bush, I'm not talking about her positions regarding the police. She is comparing poverty and economic despair on the world's only Jewish state. Again, our response is to call the Speaker of the House and to ask her to remove these people from committee assignments. I know there's some who believe that these people are so minor in the realm of Congress, but they get so much coverage from day in to day out. And the more they allow this to go unchecked, the more that this becomes mainstream. And so once again, for us to listen to Moses' sermon, it is for us not only to be aware about these things that are going on, but to speak about them, to advocate about them. And the scariest thing that I mentioned is really Iran. And I know that my colleagues will be addressing a lot of this during their high holiday sermons. Tomorrow, Benji Sokol is going to be giving an incredible Devar Torah about Parshat Re'eh, about the definition of kosher, which in its basic definition means a fitting people. And he's going to get into a great drash about that. But the reason why we keep kosher, we are a fitting people, there's one reason. That is that God asks us to be a holy nation. Jewish peoplehood is best when we are united on something. We may have theological differences or ritual differences compared to our friends down the street, our friends on Overton Road, but at the end of the day, we're unified by three things: God, Torah, and Eretz Yisrael. It's our obligation as a Jewish Birmingham to meet in that center, because when we are in this together regarding our love of Israel, this is how we make change, and this is how we bring awareness. I promise this congregational family I'd always be loud. I will not stop talking about it, nor will I ever apologize for it. But sometimes we have to be reminded. Moses knew this before the people entered into Eretz Yisrael, and it's our job to remind our people to ensure that she continues to thrive on. Shabbat Shalom. We rise together for our Aleinu 586.
עלינו לשבח לאדון הכל, לתת גדולה ליוצא בראשית, שלא עשנו כגויי הארצות, ולא שמנו כמשפחות האדמה, שלא שם חלקנו כהם, וגורלנו ככל המונם. ואנחנו קוראים ומשתחווים ומודים לבני מלך מלכי המלכים הקדוש ברוך הוא. היה אדוני למלך על כל הארץ. ביום ההוא יהיה אדוני אחד, ושמו אחד.
The bottom of page 595, 595. There are stars up above so far away we only see their lights long, long after the star itself is gone. And so it is with the people that we love. Their memories keep shining ever brightly, though their time with us is done. But the stars that light up the darkest night, these are the lights that guide us as we live our days. These are the ways that we remember. On the Shabbat, we recall the yortzites of Abe Abrams, Julian Adler, Ida Allenberg, Louis Allenberg, Salome Kelman, Lazar Kushmeriu, Dorothy Weinstein Dubowski, Patty Glickman, Janet Goldfarb, Betty Golding, Bertie Goldstein, Mary Frances Hastings, Emil Carl Hess, Mary Spence Eisenberg, David H. Jaffe, Dr. Noah Wayne Jaffe, Jordan Kirschberg, Harry M. Cohn, Milton Kravitsky, Ida B. Levin, Morris Morlow, Josephine McWaters Alexander, J. George Mitnick, Morris Munsky, Lorenzo Music, Martin Harold Nelson, Ben N. Perlman, Eli Perlman, Isaac Piatzik, David Reutman, Myron C. Rosenthal, Sylvia Rutstein, Irvin Shapiro, Esther Siegel, Stanley T. Siegel, Abraham Mitchell Skyer, Yetta Glazer Sokol, Sally Tanner, Raymond L. Webb, Celia Weinstein, and Alexander Selden. Our heartfelt condolences in the recent passing of Annette Applebaum Bame, aunt of Kit Roth, Ronald Beasley, friend of Chase Callahan, Wilma Denny, mother of David Denny, Lucian Hagedorn, husband of Jean, Leonard Fred Halprin, husband of Anne, and Becky Barker Seitel, wife of Alan. May all their memories forever be a blessing. We rise together as a united congregation for Mourner's Kaddish, 598. Yikadal Vikadash Shemei Rabbah, B'yamad Divrach Hirotei B'amlich Malchutei, B'chayachon of Yom Echon, Uvchayet Dekol Beit Yisrael, Bagalah Uizman Kari V'imru Amen. Yehei Shmei Rabbah Mevarach Le'olam Olamei Almaya, Yit Barach V'yishabach, Yit Ba'ad, Yit Romam, Yit Naseh, Vita Dar, Vita Le, Vita Lal, Shmei Kutsha,
Barichu.
Le'ela Min Kol Birchata V'shirata, Tushvechata V'nechamata, Damin Ram Be'alma V'yimru,
Amen.
Yehei Shlama Rabba Min Shemaya, V'chaim Aleinu V'yakol Yisrael V'yimru Amen. Osei Shalom B'imromav, Huya Osei Shalom, Aleinu V'yakol Yisrael V'yimru Amen.
Ose Shalom B'imromav, Huya Osei Shalom, Aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael, me'imeru, Amen.
One quick announcement. Please register your 8th grader up through your 12th grader for our incredible Kesher High School, a community program with Bethel and Temple Emanu-El. That's at the day school. Again, register your kids. It's going to be Thursday night. It's going to be wonderful. You've already been registered, I believe. Okay. That's right. Adon Olam 625.
אדון עולם אשר מלך בטרם כל יציר נברא לעת נשא בחפצו כל אזי מלך שמו נקרא ואחרי ככלות הכל לבדו ימלוך נורא והוא היה והוא הווה והוא יהיה בתפארה והוא אחד ואין שני להמשיל לו להחמירה בלי ראשית בלי תכלית ולא העוז והמשרה והוא אלי וחי גואלי בצור חבלי בעת צרה והוא ניסי ומנוס לי מנת כוסי ביום אקרא בידו אפקיד רוחי בעת ישן בעירה ואם רוחי גביעתי אדוני לי בלא יראה.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam hamotzi lechem min haaretz. Amen.
Good Shabbos.
Shabbos, Erev Shabbat, yeah, all right.